Hello, Sam Wheel here. So there's a story that's told where this guy, he's having financial problems because every time he goes to the market, he keeps buying stuff. He's like, ooh, look at this, look at that. Like, I could get this, I could get that, oh, I like that. And so he's spending all of his money, right? And he's like, I know I shouldn't be spending this, but it's very difficult for me to stop. So he went to some spiritual teacher. It's like, man, how do I stop myself from buying like all this stuff? And the spiritual teacher is quite old in this mountain, his knees are weak. So he goes and he tells the man, you know, I have this tea that I really like in the market. So if you could, please go bring that for me. But if you spill a single drop, I'm going to beat you senseless. If you don't bring it to me, I will find people to beat you senseless. On the other hand, I really like this tea and I haven't had it in a long time. So if you can get it to me without spilling a single drop, and I'll know if you spilled a drop, I will give you a $1,000 reward. Sound good? Right? So the man was like, oh, okay, I'll try. So he went to the market, he picked up the cup of tea, and then he looked straight down into the cup as he was walking throughout the market. Like, he was doing, oh, no, 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 zoom, zoom, like always making sure that none of it like spilled over. He was always looking at the tea, and he got it all the way back up into the mountain where his spiritual teacher was. So he got the $1,000 reward, and the spiritual teacher asked him, it's like, oh, did you notice what the price of, the luxury foods in the market were today? And he was like, no, I haven't. And he said, that's because you were focusing so much on the tea. You didn't have the time or attention or desire to start looking at these other things. You knew that you would get a $1,000 reward if you got me this tea, and if you didn't, right, you would be beat senseless. So everything else in the world stopped mattering to you except for that tea, right? The tea was what was important to you, to get it to me, in a proper fashion, So analogizing this, oftentimes we know what we should be doing in life, and it's like, we're not dumb, we know that this is what I should be doing, but I can't seem to get myself to do it, and like the man who was always bringing the tea, he was always having the reminder that if I don't get this tea, I'm going to get beat. And if I do give him the tea, I'm going to get this giant reward, right? So we human beings are oftentimes forgetful, right? We know what we want, but then we get caught up in, the thickets of life, So, according to this story, right, you want to always remind yourself of what you're after in life, why you want it, and why you wouldn't want to fail at that goal, right? And always be reminding yourself of this, because when you're in the pits of desperation, of not knowing what to do, feeling lost, doing stuff that you really shouldn't be doing, oftentimes the cause of this is that simply your goal at that moment is not that strong in your mind, right? If you're thinking, oh no, like, to put it in a bit of a humorous way, like if you had a cake, right, and you're like, oh, I'm really hungry, right? But there's poison inside the cake. You're not going to eat the cake because you're going to always be reminding yourself, no, can't eat that, there's poison there, right? But if you didn't remind yourself that there's poison inside that cake, you might be like, well, let me get a slice, right? And you would die. So oftentimes that's what it's like in life, that we forget what our goals is, why we're doing them, why we want to them, and why we wouldn't want to fail at them, So we, oftentimes swerve from, what we should be doing, And so active meditation oftentimes is, or one of the points of active meditation is to bring you back to to your goals, to your principles, to why you're doing what you're doing, to why you want to do what you're doing. What's the reward? What's the punishment for not doing it? You know, it's both. It's not just, oh, why I want this, but also what would happen if I fail. And it's not just, oh, what would happen if I fail, but what would also happen if I succeeded. It's both of them put together, you know, that have a potent force, you know, something that's beyond simply daily matters. Once you set your eyes on the transcendental goal and you realize the beauty of it, you realize where things are going and the ugliness of what awaits you if you don't always remind yourself of where our thought patterns lead us. You know, that if you don't remind yourself of that, then yes, we can get lost in the thickets of life. But there's always hope. We don't have to be lost in the thickets of life. All we have to do is remind ourselves.